There was a man who was born in a village in Israel with a withered hand. Everything else worked fine, but he became known by the part of him that didn't work, his hand. It was shriveled up, floppy, and useless. And people gave him names. Worthless. The withered hand man, they called him. They gossiped about him. There's a defect in his family background. He's cursed by God. He was an embarrassment to his family. He couldn't work properly, he couldn't support the family, and he was low class. And he used to sit at the market watching everyone else getting on with life, using both hands. Hardly anyone spoke to him, and no one knew how to help him. He felt bad. He believed the label worthless, just like his right hand. Well, in that society, one day out of 7 was a rest day. They called it the Sabbath. It was the 4th commandment of the big 10 that God had given to their great ancestor Moses. Instead of working, they rested, and they prayed, and they went to the local synagogue. God had given them this law to give them a rest, just like he had done on the 7th day after making the world. It didn't mean they couldn't help a sick person or pluck a few fruits of grain to eat, or if their ox got stuck in a pit, of course they could pull it out. God gave them this law to help them, to have a good rest and to honour him. Well, this man with a withered hand, he liked the Sabbath because he could be more like everybody else, doing no work. One Sabbath day, he's sitting at the market and vendors are squatting on the path selling fish. Scales, knives, chopping block, money, fish, flies and smell. And a Pharisee comes out of his big house, beautifully dressed, head held high, strolling along, dignified, taking respectable greetings from common people. And he notices those fish vendors. Glare of disapproval, a pointing of the finger, a sharp word of authority, and those fellas quickly shut up shop and leave. The Pharisee walked on to the synagogue, right past our man, didn't even notice him. There was talk around town that day of a visitor from Nazareth called Jesus. He was becoming famous for doing miracles and healing sick people. He also taught powerful words from God. Like everyone else, our man with the withered hand hoped to see this man Jesus, so he went to the synagogue early and got a seat down the back, where he'd be less likely to be pushed out. The Pharisees were getting ready. The chief officer was preparing the order of the meeting. Synagogue official was preparing the collection box for the tithe, and some elders were keeping a close watch on that box. They will distribute its money, some for temple expenses, some for the poor and the needy, and probably a lot for themselves. And a large, strong man stood in full view with a whip. If anyone should step out of line, the elders can give him the signal, and he'll whip them into submission. Those rulers hold the public in tight control. No one dares challenge them at risk of public shame. The synagogue became full and overflowing. Service was about to start. Crowds wait outside. Excitement grows. The crowd goes quiet. All eyes turn to the door. It's Jesus. What? Just an ordinary young man, about 30, scraggy hair, dusty sandals, relaxed and casual. Looks like a nice guy. He strolls up the front, past the elders and in the front row, and he greets a group of ordinary people. And then his eyes move towards the back, and they seem to stop and fix on our man with his withered hand, just for a moment. His heart fires up, but no one else notices. The meeting begins. A big crowd have turned up today, not for some boring meeting of the rulers, but to see this Jesus. Many are hoping to see a miracle, even though they know it's against the Pharisees' laws. The elders are running a risk allowing Jesus to teach at their synagogue, but if he should challenge their authority, they have a plan. They will quote from their law books, expose him as an offender, join ranks to accuse him, and if necessary, call on the services of their strong attendant with his whip in hand, and I'll show who's in charge around here. Jesus knows what they're thinking. He's not scared of elders and their petty laws. It's a Sabbath rest day, and Jesus is quite relaxed. And then, looking for a reason to accuse him, they ask him, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" Jesus is ready for them. He answers, What man is there among you who has one sheep, and if it falls into the pit on the Sabbath, will he not grab hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a man than a sheep?" Well, that answer quietens the Pharisees. Jesus does some teaching, and then he stops what he's saying and he moves his gaze to the back row, to our man with the withered hand. The man freezes. Jesus breaks the silence. "Get up, come to the front and stand here in front of everyone." The man's heart races, body sweats, shakes in fear. He's under a command here. He does what he's told. He can't leave his shameful withered hand behind. It comes too. All eyes turn on him. He's the centre of attention here. He hears whispers. "Withered hand man, worthless." His shame is exposed. If Jesus heals him, he'll fall into their trap, but if he doesn't heal him, well, nothing's going to change. Jesus looks around at the whole crowd, in the aisles, through the windows and outside from over the whole countryside, and he asks them all a question. Which is lawful to do on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill? There is silence. The answer is obvious. The atmosphere is tense. A duel is on. One brave man against a hardened group of synagogue rulers, lost for words but angry. And he stands in the centre, our man with his withered hand. Hard faces of the Pharisees on one side and the calm, gentle face of Jesus on the other. What will Jesus do? Will he heal him? And if he does, what will the Pharisees do? His hand droops down for all to see. The crowd want to see a miracle. Jesus turns to the rulers. He's angry at them, deeply upset at their hard, stubborn hearts. And he glares at each one of them, one after another. How dare they pretend to represent God? Just who does have authority in Israel anyway? Is it one who can give orders to a strong man with a whip? Or is it one who can heal a withered hand with a word? Jesus turns and looks at that man, and he gives a command, firm but kind. Stretch out your hand. He must obey. He's not referring to his good hand, but the hand that defined him, withered. Slowly he raises his arm. Everyone holds their breath. It's not the same hand. It's been made completely new. The fingers, they move. The wrist, it's normal. It's strong. His label's gone. A healed hand and a healed heart. No longer worthless, now useful, valuable, acceptable and restored. A great cheer goes up from the crowd. They're witnessing a miracle here. They're seeing the great power of God. They're witnessing this man's redemption. His curse is gone. From now on, he'll be defined by his hand, all right, the one that Jesus healed. He's got a new identity here in Jesus, restored, made whole. His shame and disgrace are gone. Everyone's praising God for what they're seeing before their eyes. But not those rulers. One of them gets up and leaves, and another follows, then others. Soon all their seats are empty. They depose themselves under the weight of public opinion. They go back to their big houses, and behind closed doors they plot how they might kill Jesus. To kill on the Sabbath? Jesus had asked exactly the right question. Jesus had healed a man, but they depart to plot how to kill a man. The crowd know who's been sent by God, not those false rulers, but this Jesus of Nazareth.